Hi, in this recording we are going to talk about the parts of a lesson plan, and the lesson plans that you write throughout your program are going to become increasingly complex, but because right now you're in introductory block, this is just the basic template for writing lesson plans that you are going to be using. So in this recording I'm going to look at the different parts of lesson plans that we expect you to include and go over them so you understand what they're all about. So you might want to follow along by downloading the two documents that I've attached to this link in Blackboard. So, because I know sometimes when I put stuff on the screen, it's really hard to see when you're viewing it on YouTube. So, all right. So this is the template for lesson plans that you are going to use. I have a blank template that doesn't have this orange text. This orange text I have shown on the screen is basically just to give you an explanation in case you forget, what certain parts of lesson plans are all about. So every time you do an assignment, you're going to download a blank one of these and fill it out. All right, so your lesson plan should always start with a title. The title can be pretty simple. It should just capture what students are expected to learn in the lesson. So here's my example. This is a model lesson plan, and you can locate this. I mean, it's in Blackboard linked to this video, but it's also this is also the model read aloud lesson plan that I provided in the assignments folder, so you might have already read through this if you've already started thinking about that assignment. So I kept it simple. Comprehending and retelling, this is not my hat. That's what students are going to be doing in the lesson plan. They're going to be responding to questions designed to facilitate their comprehension of the book This Is Not My Hat by John Classen. They're also going to retell the story. All right, pretty simple. Lesson author, that's you. That's probably the easiest part of your lesson plan. Then your subject area. You simply state the content area of your lesson plan. In this class, it's going to be either reading or writing. Pretty simple. Grade level. You select the grade level of your lesson plan. For the purpose of our class, you can write your lesson plans for any grade level that you want between kindergarten and 6th grade. A lot of students in the TAP program, like yourselves, want to write lesson plans for the grade level in which they're currently working, but you can pick any grade level you want. Like, say you're currently working in 2nd grade, but you want to be a 5th grade teacher, write your lesson plan for 5th grade. It's really up to you. You have a choice in that matter. Then we have your Common Core State Standards, which we've talked about in some other videos this week. So the grade level of the Common Core State Standards that you select should match the grade level that you have already specified here in your lesson plan. So in my model lesson plan, I specified my grade level as kindergarten, and I have Common Core State Standards for English Language Arts listed for kindergarten. Now, when you write a lesson plan, you need to have at least one standard, but sometimes multiple standards apply to your lesson. But as long as you have at least one, you're in good shape. You certainly don't want like 10 because most lesson plans can't address 10 standards in one lesson. That would be crazy. All right. We've talked about objectives in other videos this week, so I know you know what those are. So you list your objectives here. You only need to have 1 or 2 objectives for all of your lesson plans. As long as you have at least one, again, you're in good shape. So on my lesson plan, my model lesson plan here, I wrote down my objective. And I know I've already gone over those, so I'm not going to say much more about them here. All right, then you write your assessment procedures. And this part of your lesson plan explains how you, as the teacher, will know that students have met the objectives that you have specified above. Assessments might include things like quizzes, or it could be like a discussion. You might assess students on how they respond to it in a discussion. Maybe they're just doing something like an exit ticket in their class. An assessment can take a lot of different forms. But what's important is that you specify how you as a teacher are going to assess how students have met your objective. So in my model lesson plan, I'm saying that the teacher is going to assess students' comprehension of the story in terms of story elements like characters, settings, major events, and so on by asking questions during the lesson plan and listening to what the students say. And the questions that the teacher is going to ask appear in a different section of the lesson plan. The teacher is also going to assess the student's comprehension about the book and about story elements by asking the student to retell the story in as much detail as possible. So with this particular lesson plan, the teacher is going to assess that by using a retelling checklist. And when you write your read aloud lesson plan, you are going to create your own retelling checklist. And just for the sake of, showing you what it looks like, this is the retelling checklist. It spans 2 pages. Any sort of rubric or checklist that you mention in your lesson plan needs to be attached with your lesson plan. So for this particular assignment, your read aloud lesson plan, your retelling checklist needs to appear at the end of your lesson plan, just like I have mine here. So the students are going to retell the story, say as much as they remember, and the teacher is going to check off what they remember about the story, and that's a great way of assessing their comprehension. So I'm being very specific about how I, as a teacher, am assessing my students. All right, materials and technology. That's a pretty easy part of your lesson plan to fill out. That includes like any books you're using in the lesson plan, any worksheets, that you need to hand out to students, any writing utensils like pencils, computers, whatever it is that students or the teacher will be using in the lesson plan, those items need to be listed there. Then you write your lesson purpose. So you explain what students are going to learn during the lesson, and you should also tell them why it's important so that they understand that you're not just teaching them something for the heck of it. They should understand why you are teaching it. What good will it do them in the real world or in future grade levels? So I highly recommend that you write your lesson purpose in the sort of language that you would use with children. So you don't want to write it for an adult audience. You want to write your lesson purpose for a child audience like I have done here in my example. Okay. Moving along, you have your lesson introduction. This is how you open your lesson. This part of the lesson is really important because this is where you are going to hook students into becoming interested in the lesson. So the idea behind a lesson introduction is to get kids interested in your lesson. It's also designed to have them make connections to what they already know, their prior knowledge, and so forth. Because as we learned earlier in the semester, when students think about what they already know prior to a lesson, it helps them understand the lesson better. And that's especially true when students read. We want to encourage them to bring their background knowledge to the forefront before they begin reading. So your lesson introduction is designed to do that, and there are lots of creative ways you can introduce lessons. I'm sure that a lot of the teachers you guys are already working with have some really creative ideas out there. So for my lesson introduction for the read aloud lesson plan, I'm keeping it pretty simple. So I'm actually giving the student in the lesson an opportunity to make predictions about the story based on the front cover. So the student's thinking about, all right, what's this story going to be about? What do I think will happen in this story? So that gives the child a reason for reading because they want to see if what they're predicting and what they're thinking is correct. So that's my introduction. And, for the purpose of writing your read aloud lesson plan, it's perfectly fine if you want to keep yours simple and, just have students make a prediction or something along those lines. Maybe you might want to have them take a picture walk. A picture walk is when you, as the teacher, browse through the illustrations in a story and have students think about what the story might be about. Again, you're activating students' background knowledge by doing things like having them make predictions or having them engage in a picture walk. All right, then we have lesson procedures. This is really the heart of the lesson plan. This explains step by step exactly what is going to happen in the lesson plan. I prefer if you list the steps in your lesson plan numerically, like number 1, number 2, and so on. So you see that I'm on the second page of my lesson plan right now at lesson procedures. I'm on the third page now. I'm still on my lesson procedures. I'm on the fourth page. I'm still on my lesson procedures. Oh, and now I'm on the 5th page, and I'm just wrapping up my lesson procedures. My point in pointing that out to you is I want you to be aware that your lesson procedure needs to be extremely detailed. If it's well done and it's detailed enough, it should be at least 2 pages long, at least for the purpose of the class. What I want you to be able to do is write a lesson plan that a person besides you as the lesson plan author could actually follow and implement with fidelity, meaning being faithful to the intent of the lesson plan. You need to ask yourself, could a substitute teacher take my lesson plan and follow it exactly as I intend the lesson plan to go? If the answer is yes, your lesson plan is detailed enough. If the answer is no, if there are parts that are ambiguous and someone would have questions about what's happening in the lesson plan, then you need more detail. So I'm really picky about this. And the reason why I'm so picky about it is because I want you to get into that mindset of being very detail oriented and thinking through lessons from start to finish. Really, one of the reasons why you write lesson plans in courses like this is to get you in the right frame of mind to begin thinking about planning your lessons when you become a teacher. Obviously, you don't write a lesson plan this long when you become a teacher and you have your own classroom. I never wrote lesson plans like this outside of my teacher education course setting. Like I wrote lesson plans like this when I was a student, like yourselves, but I never wrote lesson plans this detailed as a teacher. However, writing lesson plans like this when I was a student helped me, think through that whole process of planning a lesson, and it allowed me to attend to details. Even though I wasn't necessarily writing down all my lesson plans, I was able to really understand all the thinking and all the considerations that go into planning an effective lesson. So that's why we have you write detailed lesson plans here, so you begin thinking in that very detailed way. And finally, at the end, you have your lesson closure. That's the end of your lesson, and what you want to do with the lesson closure is give students a chance to review what they've learned in the lesson or reflect on what they've learned during the lesson. So I have to scroll all the way down to find my lesson closure here. So my lesson plan ends with the student retelling the story. This is not my hat, and the teacher is assessing the student using the retelling checklist. So at the end of my lesson, I have the teacher thanking the student for doing the retelling and giving the child a compliment about what he or she did well. The compliment should be specific if you decide you want to include that in your lesson closure. And then the teacher finally wraps it up by having the student think about, what he or she learned about the lesson, or learn about the story as a result of the lesson, or by giving the student a chance to respond to the story, like explaining what he or she liked about the story. So that's a pretty simple way to close a lesson, but it works. And then at the end of my lesson plan, as I already said, I have my retelling checklist. So again, any lesson plans you write in this class, anytime you make mention of a worksheet or a grading checklist or a rubric, you need to include it at the end of your lesson plan so that I can get the full picture of what's going on in your classroom. So I hope that this little tutorial about the different parts of a lesson plan has been helpful, and if you have any questions about it, let me know. And please understand that, again, this is a really basic template for writing lesson plans. You are going to add parts to your lesson plans as you move through your program. Like when you get to intermediate block and senior block, your lesson plans are going to become a little bit more complex, but in this class we work on the basics and make sure that you understand those before you move on. So let me know if you need any help with this.